Coming to you from an undisclosed location, somewhere deep in the heart of the Santa Monica Mountains, I am your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli. Today is the eve of the 9th of Av, and when you're watching this, it will be the end of the 9th of Av. And I'll get into that. It's a very troublesome day. It's a very prophetic day. It's a very charged day. It's a day of sorrow for Jewish people all over the globe. So we'll talk about this, not for the faint of heart. We're going to go over to Rumble at the end because we're going to show you some clips that are very disturbing. And again, not for the faint of heart, but this is what our planet is because we have someone who's the adversary of our souls. But first, a word from our trusted sponsor. You probably think your 401k is safe, that it's growing, that it'll be enough for your retirement. But what if it's not? Here's the truth, folks. Your 401k was never designed to make you wealthy. It was created in a corporate boardroom to shift retirement costs and investment risks onto you. Designed to keep your money trapped, exposed to Wall Street crashes, inflation, and uncertainty you can't control. Until now. Folks, Americans are taking back control by turning to real assets like gold. Noble Gold Investments has helped thousands protect your future by converting part of their retirement savings into physical gold. Talk to Noble Gold today and learn how safe and easy it is to roll over your 401k into a tax-advantaged gold IRA without penalties or headaches. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com. That's noblegoldinvestments.com to get your free wealth protection kit, including a step-by-step guide to get started. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. It's time to get your money out of the danger zone and into something real. And folks, get rewarded for getting started. Open a qualified account at noblegoldinvestments.com, and Noble Gold will send you 2 5-ounce Silver America, the beautiful coins free. Once again, folks, noblegoldinvestments.com. Thanks so much for watching, folks. Before I get into this, if you're watching on YouTube, directly below the screen, you'll see subscribe. Right next to subscribe is join. Yes, you can join for 30 cents a day, $10 a month, $9.99. You can become a member. That's the highest. There's one for $2.99, the one for $9.99. 10% off on everything in the store. Just think about that. 10% off of everything that we have in our store. And of course, you'll get special access to videos and all sorts of content. I'm actually going to do one soon, probably this week, with my good old friend, Gary Schultz. I interviewed Gary. He was out in Area 51 before anyone knew about Area 51. And that's how far back. It goes back to 1994 when I first started to get into the idea of the Nephilim Trilogy, which has already been published. There's actually 3 books in it, but I digress as usual. Anyway, folks, think about it. Thank you for praying for us. Thank you for becoming a member. It really helps keep doing what we love to do here. So let me get into this. Today is the 9th of Av. It is a day of mourning for Jewish people all around the world. Why is that? Well, I could go into great depth here, but the first temple was destroyed by the Babylonians when? On the 9th of Av. The second temple was destroyed by the Romans when? On the 9th of Av. The Jews were expelled from Spain when? On the 9th of Av. The Jews were hunted down and persecuted by the Nazis. The whole Holocaust began when? On the 9th of Av. The 9th of Av is a very troublesome day. It's a day of mourning for people of Israel. Now, I'm receiving a lot of flack from people. The rise of anti-Semitism is literally through the roof, and it's not going away. On the other side of this show, we're going to post this clip I did years ago called The Rise of Anti-Semitism. I will probably show it again at the Prophecy Watchers Conference. It only takes about 8 minutes, and I think it should be required watching for every American. Why? Because what it does is it shows what happened just decades ago in the 20th century, the Holocaust. And there are people who are Holocaust deniers, and I understand that, and they'll say things like, well, the numbers are greatly exaggerated. I've talked, before you start writing me, how many survivors have you talked to? How much time have you actually spent reading the documentation? Do you think the numbers are fudged? What most of you don't know is this. During the Third Reich, there were 20,000 centers, concentration camps, processing areas, forced labor. It was a network, a very disgusting network, which basically trafficked in human slavery. If you didn't go to the ovens, then you were in a mine or in a factory or whatever, and they would work you to death, literally, and you die anyway. So, the trains at Auschwitz, if you've ever seen pictures of that, where the angel of death, Mengele, conducted horrific experiments on Jewish children, on Jewish people. I mean, horrific experiments. And he escaped to South America and died at a very old age, as many Nazis, I believe, escaped and found their way through the rat lines. And we won't get into that, but the rat lines, Google that. Who funded the rat lines? Who promulgated the rat lines at the end of World War II? It'll blow your mind. Probably too sensitive to talk about on YouTube. But the rat lines were real. Many Nazis wound up in South America. I truly believe there was, before I get into that, there was a show on the History Channel, Hunting Hitler. I watched every episode. It was really well done. And I believe Hitler did escape the bunker. He got out of there. And they go through, if you haven't seen it, check it out. They go through the entire process. How he left Berlin on a very small plane, how he then landed at another place, made his way to Spain. From Spain, he hopped on a submarine and wound up in South America. I believe other head Nazis escaped justice. Perhaps our CIA knew about this. There's no way to tell. I mean, it's buried so deep. But I truly believe that Hitler survived World War II and lived to a very old age somewhere in South America. Bariloche is certainly one area that is suspect. And, the show is amazing because they're on the trail and they take you places where you can see the vestiges of Nazi buildings, Nazi paraphernalia. So, what are we looking at here? So the bottom line is this, that the film that you're about to see, and you can only watch that over on Rumble, it's way too hot for YouTube. And the story behind the clips, the still pictures that you will see is this. There was a woman who came up to me. Forgive me, it's been years ago. The initial file, the initial pictures that you gave me, all burnt in the fire. So what I did do is I was able to digitize everything, and you're going to see the pictures that this woman gave me. I don't remember her name. It was in a letter with all the folder in my studio, the old studio. Everything burned in the fire. So forgive me, I don't remember your name. If you're watching this, please shoot me an email, la@lamarzulli.net. So she came up to me with these pictures. They're all black and white. And her grandfather was embedded with General Dwight Eisenhower, who later became president. So her grandfather is a photographer. He's embedded with General Dwight Eisenhower, and they're at a concentration camp. They are liberating a concentration camp at the end of World War II. These pictures, again, if you're sensitive, and this is not hyperbole, these are extremely graphic. They were never published, so we're the first people to actually publish them. And this woman whose grandfather was there with Eisenhower, in one of the shots, you can see Eisenhower in front of the gallows or right next to the gallows that were used to hang prisoners. The Holocaust was real. The Holocaust deniers can talk about the numbers are fudged and everything else. Do some research. Please don't email me. You're not going to convince me. The rise of anti-Semitism is through the roof. And there's this whole canard, which is what it is, that's going around that these are not the Jews, that these are somehow the descendants of the Khazarians. It's an absolute lie. It's a fabrication, like the protocols of the elders of Zion. It's a construct, and yet a lot of great Christian people that I know have bought into this, and it is a lie. Here's why. In our film, I believe it's Watchers 10, but it's either 9 or 10, and we sat down with Dan Gordon, and we presented the whole Khazarian thing to him. And he just basically states on the record what people don't know because they don't study history. that after the Bar Kokhba revolt in AD 130, Jews were scattered. They were no longer living in Jerusalem. They went to what is now the modern places of Jordan, Syria, Iraq, Egypt. That's where they wound up, and they settled there, and they were there for thousands of years until the 18th century, the 19th century, and they started to trickle back into what is now Israel. The Balfour Declaration set everything on fire, and there was an influx of Jews. In 1948, on May 14th, when Israel declared its sovereignty as a nation, Jews flocked from they had already been doing this from the Balfour Declaration. But that, of course, is when all the Arab countries attacked Israel. I've told this story before. I'll say it again. I was at a Jewish synagogue. Excuse me. Let me get a slurp here. And years ago, a friend of mine, Dan Gordon, was speaking. And it was Dan that talked about the Khazarians in our Watchers film. So there's the connectivity. There's the dovetailing here between Watchers and what happened in the synagogue. So Dan said, hey, I'll be in your area, Thousand Oaks, synagogue here, I'll be speaking. So I go. Basically, I'm the only non-Jew in the place. No doubt about it. I'm the only non-Jew. And Dan is talking about May 14th, 1948, when the Arab nations attack the nation of Israel, and there's a column of Egyptian soldiers, which are like 30 miles from Tel Aviv. They're really close. And of course, if they capture Tel Aviv, that's it. It's over. That's it. But the Jews have smuggled in from Czechoslovakia 3 planes in pieces because they weren't allowed to have the planes. So they smuggled them in. They bought them at highly inflated prices. Normally, a plane, these fighter planes that they had, would run about $3,000 to $6,000 at the end of World War II. But they sold them to the Jews for $30,000. They took them apart and they reassembled them. So now this column of Egyptian soldiers are about 15 to 30 miles away. So I forget the exact number, but they're close, too close. And these planes have no avionics. There's no radar and there's nothing. They're flying blind. And these planes have never been tested. Planes have never been tested. They've been reassembled. Get that? No avionics, no radar, no nothing. They have machine guns. 3 pilots volunteer. They get in the planes. They have no idea where they're going. They only know that there's a column of Egyptian soldiers way out there somewhere, and they take off, and they find the column, and they strafe the column, and the Egyptians scatter, and then the Egyptians retreat. Why? Because they think that this is just a sort of the avant-garde of the Israeli Air Force, that they're going to get bombed back into the Stone Age here. This is just a scout mission. They don't realize that that's all the Israelis have, are 3 planes. And they were actually tossing out little, bombs out of the cockpit and strafing, and the Egyptians turned back. So we're listening to Dan, and he's talking, and then he says this, and one of the remaining pilots is here with us tonight. This man, who by this time is in his 80s, stands up. The entire room, you had to be there to understand it. And it was and I'll get into what happened and how it impacted me. The entire room stood up and began to applaud. Men began to weep. Women began to weep and wail. The scene was so emotional, so charged. And what I realized is I was looking at a 4,000-year link that goes all the way back to Moses. Actually, it goes all the way back to Abraham. These are God's chosen people. Do I give them a blank check? Absolutely not. Are they committing atrocities? Perhaps. We don't know. We'll find out. No blank check, but they are God's chosen people. It's the time of Jacob's trouble, not Olindo Marzulli. That's my grandfather's name, an Italian guy. It's the time of Jacob. The 7-year tribulation deals with Jacob. The church and Israel are 2 distinct entities. If you have a replacement theology where there's just the church and Israel doesn't matter, then everything I'm saying just falls on deaf ears. But then how do you square the literal interpretation of Amos 9:14 and 15. I will bring back the captives of my people Israel. They will build the waste cities and inhabit them. They will plant vineyards and drink the wine from them. They will also plant gardens and eat the fruit from them. I will plant them in their land, and never again will they be plucked up out of a land I have given them. So now I'm back in the room, and what I'm witnessing is this 4,000-year connectivity with the Jews, with the Jewish people. It's unbroken. No matter what has gone on in their lives, they still remain together. And they will look on him, Jesus, whom they have pierced, and mourn for him as an only son. So if these aren't the Jews, and we're in the last days, and Jesus touches down on the Mount of Olives, that's literal, and that baby splits in half, then who's going to look on him? If these aren't the Jews, then where are they? Canada? Maybe they're hiding up in Canada. Maybe we should send an expedition up there. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. Study your history. Study your history. The rise of anti-Semitism is all too real. It's happening on college campuses. When kids stay up and wave Palestinian flags, and some of these kids are outright gay, they don't realize that if they were in an Arab country, they would be persecuted because they were gay, because they are gay. They don't understand that. And when they say ridiculous statements like, from the river to the sea, Palestine must be free, well, that's all of Israel. All of Israel. And you can make a strong case that the so-called Palestinians are already living in Jordan. Once again, I am not giving the nation of Israel a pass here. It is the greatest, what's going on there with the whole, Tel Aviv is the gay capital of the Middle East. And there are other atrocities, which I won't mention. I believe that there's ancient Baal worship that's going on there, even now. But what was written will come to pass. What was foretold is unfolding. They are been gathered back. They don't get a free pass, but they've been gathered back into their ancient homeland. Amos 9:14 and 15. If you are amillennial, then none of this means anything to you. If you hold to the paradigm of replacement theology, then everything I'm talking about goes one ear and out the other. That's why we don't go to church in and around this area, because all the churches, most of the churches, are amillennial. There is no literal millennial kingdom. Excuse me, there is. The book of Revelation and everything in it. Yeah, there's allegory in there, but when you read it, it's 1,000-year reign. He's on the earth. And he rules from where? Not Walla Walla. He rules from Jerusalem. The rise of anti-Semitism is all too real. It happened during the Holocaust. Whatever number you choose to believe, whether it's 500,000 or 6 million, whatever that is, the numbers are too big. And right now, Christians are being persecuted in Nigeria. The Druze, there's genocide happening in Syria. Not a peep. Not a peep. But we all know about this woman who did this ridiculous Gene commercial, and the left is completely going bananas over it. Excuse me. People are being slaughtered in Syria, and this is what you talk about? Nonsense. Nonsense. Follow us over to Rumble. I'm not sure how much of this we're going to show. That's up to John Adam. We'll discuss it. The 9th of Av, it's a day of trouble, a day of mourning, a day of weeping. The first and second temples were destroyed. The Jews were kicked out of Spain, the 9th of Av. Kicked out of Great Britain, the 9th of Av. I'm not sure about Kristallite, but you can make a strong case that the Holocaust began on the 9th of Av. I am your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli. Please follow us over to Rumble. If you haven't subscribed on our Rumble channel, please do that. You never know with YouTube. That's why we play it safe, and we're going to bring everything over to Rumble. Thanks for watching.